Hi, my name's Georgia, and in this video I will be discussing with you the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, which is also known as the MOCA. Here is an image of the MOCA test sheet. As you can see, there are 8 subsections. This is the visuospatial and executive functioning, naming, memory, attention, language, abstraction, delayed recall, and orientation. These sections will be further explained later on in this video. Here are the 4 versions of the MOCA. We will only be focusing on the first one, which is the sheet that I've just shown you. Here are some psychometric properties of the MOCA. Feel free to pause the video and have a quick read. As you've previously seen on the MOCA test sheet, the first section is the alternating trail making. The examiner instructs the subject, please draw a line going from a number to a letter in ascending order. Begin here and point to 1, and draw a line from 1, then to A, then to 2, and so on, and you end at E. The examiner will allocate 1 point if the subject successfully draws the following pattern: 1, A, 2, B, C, 3, 4, D, 5, E, without drawing any lines that cross. Any error that is not immediately self-corrected will earn a score of 0. The following video will demonstrate a client performing this task. The next task is replicating a cube. The examiner gives the following instructions pointing to the cube. Copy this drawing as accurately as you can in the space below. 1 point will be allocated for a correctly executed drawing. For this to happen, the drawing must be 3-dimensional, all lines must be drawn, there are to be no extra lines added, and the lines are to be relatively parallel and their length is to be similar. A point is not assigned if any of the above criteria are not met. This task will now be demonstrated by a client. The final task of this section is for the client to draw a clock. The examiner will indicate the right third of the space and give the following instructions. Draw a clock, put in all the numbers and set the time to 10 past 11. It's important for the examiner to notice if there are any clocks around that the client could be looking at. Scoring wise, a point is allocated for each of the following 3 criteria. Contour, so the clock face must be a circle with only minor distortions acceptable. Numbers, all clock numbers must be present with no additional numbers. Numbers must be in correct order and placed in the approximate quadrants on the clock face. And Roman numerals are acceptable, and the numbers can be placed outside of the circle. And there must be 2 hands jointly indicating the correct time. The hour hand must be clearly shorter than the minute hand. They must be centered within the clock face with their junction close to the clock center. This section is the naming section. The examiner will begin on the left, point to each figure and say, tell me the name of this animal. 1 point each is given for the following responses from left to right: lion, rhinoceros or rhino, and then camel or dromedary.
Lion, rhinoceros, camel.
This next task is the memory task. The examiner will read a list of 5 words at a rate of 1 per second, giving the following instructions. This is a memory test. I'm going to read a list of words that you will have to remember now and later on. Listen carefully. When I am through, tell me as many words as you can remember. It doesn't matter in what order you say them. When the client indicates that they have either finished or can no longer recall any more words, read the list a second time with the following instructions. I'm going to read the same list for a second time. Try to remember and tell me as many words as you can, including words you said the first time. At the end of the second trial, let them know that you are going to ask them to recall these words again at the end of the test.
Face, velvet, church, daisy, red.
Ready?
Yep.
Face, velvet, church, daisy, red.
The next section is the attention tasks. Give the following instructions. I am going to say some numbers, and when I am through, repeat them to me exactly as I said them. Read the number sequence at a rate of 1 digit per second.
2, 1, 8, 5, 4.
2, 1, 8, 5, 4.
Now give the following instruction. Now I'm going to say some more numbers, but when I am through, you must repeat them to me in the backwards order.
7, 4, 2.
2, 4, 7.
Now the examiner will give the instruction, I am going to read a sequence of letters. Every time I say the letter A, tap your hand once. If I say a different letter, do not tap your hand. The client is given a point if there is 0 to 1 errors. For the purpose of this video, we'll skip through this. And lastly, for attention, the examiner will give the following instruction. Now I will ask you to count by subtracting 7s from 100 and then keep subtracting 7 from your answer until I tell you to stop. You can repeat these instructions if necessary.
100, 93, 86, 79, 72, 65.
Stop.
Now the examiner will say, I'm going to read you a sentence. Repeat it after me exactly as I say it. And once they have repeated that sentence, the examiner will say, now I'm going to read you another sentence. Repeat it after me exactly as I say it. For the score, repetition must be exact. You need to be alert for errors that are omissions, omitting only and always, or substituting or adding words.
I only know that John is the one to help today.
I only know that John is the one to help today.
Yep. The cat always hid under the couch when dogs were in the room.
The cat always hid under the couch when dogs were in the room.
Now the examiner will give the following instruction. Tell me as many words as you can think of that begin with a certain letter of the alphabet that I will tell you in a moment. You can say any kind of word you want except for proper nouns like Bob or Boston, numbers or words that begin with the same sound but have a different suffix, for example, love and lover. I will tell you to stop after 1 minute. Are you ready? Now, tell me as many words as you can think of that begin with the letter F. For the client to score 1 point, they must name 11 or more letters that begin with F.
Fridge, fist, first, fun, friend, feed, finally, fudge, fur, fork, frugal, Fishing.
Stop.
The examiner will now ask the client to explain what each pair of words has in common, starting with the example, tell me how an orange and a banana are alike. Once the client understands that they are both fruits, and that's their similarity, the examiner will now ask, tell me how a train and a bicycle are alike. Following the response, administer the second trial, saying, now tell me how a ruler and a watch are alike. Do not give any additional instructions or prompts.
Train and bicycle,
Both means of transport.
and watch and ruler.
Both measure something.
The examiner will now give the following instruction. I read some words to you earlier, which I asked you to remember. Tell me as many of those words as you can remember. Once the client has either finished all those words or believes they can no longer remember them, then you are able to give them cues, such as for face, category cue, it was a part of the body, or a multiple choice, was it nose, face, or hand. This section is optional because if they need cues, then they are not scored. The examiner will now ask the client to tell them the year, month, exact date and day of the week it is. And they will also ask the name of the place they are in and which city it is in. Once their client has given their answers, you will establish whether or not the client has had 12 years or fewer of formal education, and if they have had less than 12 years,
What is the date
during
today?
the scoring process, you will give them 1 extra point.
And the year?
2017.
And what day is it?
It's Wednesday.
Yeah. And what's the building that we're in?
It's our home.
And what city is it in?
Taradale.